Hi everyone, my name is Primorion, and this is going to be my Diluc guide. We're going to be talking about his builds, combos, team comps, talent prios, pros and cons, stuff like that. So before we begin, who is Diluc, Especially if you're like new to Genshin Impact, what does it do? So Diluc is a Pyro Claimer user that deals sustained damage, mainly through his elemental skill and normal attacks. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Nothing more about Diluc. So let's talk about his pros and cons. And let's start off with the pros. Number one, he's free to play friendly, considering the fact that one of his best 4-star weapons is craftable. Number two, he's fun to play. At least for me, I find him fun to play, pretty self-explanatory. Number three, he deals damage through, like I said, sustained. He's a sustained DPS character, meaning his damage is consistent and it adds up over time. And in a sense, this makes him compete with other newer DPS characters like Zhao or Hu Tao, except Ganyu. No one can beat Ganyu. And last but not least, he's pretty easy to use and is, also hard to master in a sense if you want to do Dragon Strike and stuff. So what about his cons? I think first of all, he's a bit reliant on Xingqiu, even more so than Hu Tao. He really needs Xingqiu, at least in my opinion. Number two, his elemental skill can get interrupted, and which his elemental skill is one of his big damage dealing abilities. And a lot of opponents right now, like the Lector, like the Herald, a lot of opponents that Mihoyo is releasing right now can stagger and interrupt your abilities and such. Number three, his ability to burst down targets is a bit lackluster because considering the new Abyss, wherein you'll need like a small open window in order to burst down your opponents real quick, and like I said, Diluc's damage adds up over time. He doesn't have those big damage in a span of 9 seconds or so like Hu Tao, things like that. And last but not least, I think he's really, really reliant on the Crimson Witch set. And you're probably wondering, a Crimson Witch set is farmable though. You could probably get some good stuff from it, but in my case, all I get are garbage. Alright, so let's talk about his abilities, right? So first up is his normal attack. He does 4 slow swings with his huge claymore. Currently, has his normal attack has the highest multipliers in the game compared to other claymore users, which is good. Which that's one of the reasons what makes him a really good unit. Next up is his elemental skill, Broken Wings. I mean Darkened Blade. I mean Searing Onslaught. Searing Onslaught. So Diluc wields the power of justice and does 3 badass swings, one for unity, one for duty, and one for destiny, dealing pyro damage. Each hit generates 1 to 2 pyro energy particles depending on your luck, and the multipliers on this ability is pretty good. Last but not least is Diluc's burst, named Getsuga Tensha. He does a badass AoE flame slash in front of him, knocking away small to medium sized opponents, and also deals damage while they're getting knocked back, and it infuses his claymore, his huge claymore, with a pyro aura that lasts for 8 seconds. And the multipliers on this ability is also pretty good. As for his passives, his passive 1, he gets a refund when forging claymores, since a lot of decent amount of resources, it's a good passive. His second passive, Relentless, is unfortunately named Useless because this is really a useless talent. Unfortunately, it does look cool though, that's for sure. And thirdly, the Pyro enchantment on his burst extends by 4 seconds, and he gains a 20% Pyro damage bonus. And this passive is really good. especially while you're waiting for your elemental skill to be right back up. As for his constellations, we don't do that here. We're free to play. But jokes aside, I won't discuss his constellations, but I will say I think all of his constellations are really solid. So if you have them, use them, pop them. It gives them insane damage output. So yeah, pretty good constellations. Alright, so let's talk about Diluc combos. First off, there's the auto E, auto E, auto, and E. That's how it looks like. It's the most commonly used Diluc combo, and like a lot of the times that's the combo that you'll probably use. Next up will be including your burst. So you do the first combo, but at the end you do another auto attack and then you use your burst. So it goes like this. I would do that, especially if you have like Xingqiu's rain swords, so that once while you're waiting for your E skill cooldown, your Q animation will by like around, I'd say 1 or 2 seconds. So that's another 1 or 2 seconds lower for your elemental skill. And while you're waiting for your elemental skill, you whack him with your Pyro Enchanted Claymore, so to speak. I mean, your Pyro Enchanted huge Claymore, that is. So, another combo that you can utilize, especially in Abyss. And here's another combo. I tend to use this one when I want to dodge an opponent's attack, while at the same time still maximizing my damage, right? So, I do an auto attack E, and after after the E, I would immediately use my burst. And after that, you can still use your elemental skill charges. So like, you go like this, animation of your burst, then you can still go for the auto E. And that way, you won't lose out that much on your DPS output, and your Diluc will be able to dodge a hit. So let's talk about Diluc's weapons. So as we all know, Prototype Archaic is Diluc's best free-to-play weapon. It has a high base attack, and it gives attack percentage as its secondary stat, and its passive is really good as well. And this is one of the reasons why I think Diluc is super free-to-play friendly, just because Archaic exists. So, Lithic Blade. Lithic Blade is, I think it's a good option. For me, it outvalues Archaic if you run 3 Liyue characters. But I would stick with Archaic still if you just have 2 or less Liyue characters. So there's that. Blackleaf Slasher is a really good option if you tend to pair Diluc with Bennett or characters that, pass off EM, like Sucrose, or if you have like Instructor Abuser character. The only problem with Slasher is that it lacks attack, right? And its passive is a bit unreliable. So that's one of the reasons why I only run Slasher if I run like a Bennett, or worst case if I run like a Noblesse support or something. But the good thing about Slasher is because it gives crit damage, and crit damage is really valuable, so there's that. As for Rain Slasher, I would say it's in the same scenario as Slasher. I can't say for sure what's better though, because I haven't tested Rain Slasher yet. But all I can say is, for these type of weapons, or Serpent Spine as well, it's a bit dependent of what you have or what you need, right? Because Rain Slasher gives EM, which is very valuable, and its passive is really good as well. But the problem is, it doesn't give that much of an attack, right? So if you have like high attack percentage on your artifact setup, or if you run him like a Bennett, then Rain Slasher would be a really valuable weapon, right? Same goes for Blackleaf Slasher. Things like that. But in general, I think the best 4-star weapon for Diluc is Serpent Spine. That Claymore is just broken. It gives crit rate, which is way more valuable than crit damage in my opinion. And its passive is really broken. So that's it for the 4-star weapons. As for 5-star weapons, Skyward Pride and Wolf's Gravestone are really good claymore weapons for Diluc. Both have like the same value. From what I know, Gravestone has higher burst damage, but Skyward Pride has higher sustained DPS output. So it's a matter of preference. I think both are good. So it's just a matter of what you have or what you need again, or what you prefer. And in my case, I prefer Wolf's Gravestone. But the benefit of Skyward Pride is that you can run Diluc like a solo Pyro in a team comp, something like that, since you don't need to fuel him at all, since Skyward Pride gives energy recharge, and you won't need energy recharge in your substats, so to speak. And of course, Gravestone, it's a bit easier since it gives off just a high amounts of attack. So there's that. Also, comparison between Gravestone and Unforged. Unforged is more consistent, and it makes your Diluc tankier if you're running shield support. But Wolf's Gravestone has a higher high simply because of its passive. Its passive is really good if you manage to proc it, but of course, it's a bit difficult to get the passive off, and that's where Unforged outshines Gravestone, so to speak, in terms of consistency. Because as long as you shield your Diluc and whack some stuff, you'll have a high amounts of attack. So again, a bit of what you have or what you need. And of course, in general, 5-star weapons are better than most of these 4-star weapons anyway, so there's that. As for Diluc's artifacts, his currently best in slot artifact set would be the Crimson Witch of Flames. It gives a fire damage bonus, and it enhances your pyro elemental reactions. A decent alternative would be a full set Gladiator's Finale, but the problem is it's just getting good substats on your Gladiator set is a bit, you know, nigh impossible anyway, and Crimson Witch of Flames is farmable, so just be patient, farm up your Crimson Witch of Flames set, and then you're good to go. Your timepiece would be Attack or Elemental Mastery. I would still suggest Attack because it's a bit more easy to get and it's a lot more consistent. But if you have high enough attack already, let's say you're pairing Diluc with a Bennett, or you just have a straight up Unforged or Wolf's Gravestone, then you can instead run a Elemental Mastery Timepiece. That would increase your Vaporize reactions significantly, and overall would have a much higher DPS output compared to having a attack timepiece. But of course, like I said, it's all dependent on what you have. And I would say just run whatever you have better. And in my case, I don't have that much. I don't have a good Elemental Mastery timepiece, so attack percentage it is. Your Goblet, obviously pyro damage bonus. Even I don't have that much good of a pyro damage cup anyway. No brainer there. And of course, your Circlet would be either crit rate or crit damage, whatever that you are lacking. You could aim for the 1:2 crit ratio, but as for me, my philosophy is more crit rate or crit damage the better. That's just how I go. As for substat priorities, you go for the crit substats. That's your main priority. After that would be either attack or EM, whatever you're lacking. Most likely would be attack, but EM is very nice as well. And last but not least, ER. In order to at least maximize your Diluc, you need around 120 ER, I think, yeah, because his burst is really low. But it's not that detrimental if you don't have ER in your Diluc, because he generates decent amount of particles, and most likely you'll run him with another pyro support anyway, so no need to worry about that much. And that's it for the build. As for talent priorities, you max out your elemental skill first, and then normal attack, and then lastly your burst. The reason why we max our elemental skill and normal attack first is because Diluc mostly deals consistent damage, and having high normal attack and high elemental skill would benefit just that. You're done while despite having good multipliers, it just pales in comparison in terms of maximizing your elemental skill and your normal attack. And of course, put all these at minimum level 8, and then that's when you can decide to crown or just develop up to 9 your Searing Onslaught and then your normal attack, and then you're done. Let's talk about Diluc team comps. So, let's talk about Diluc team comps. So, Diluc's best team comp currently is the National Diluc comp, wherein you run him with Xingqiu, Bennett, and Venti. So you got Xingqiu to enable Vaporize, you got Bennett to buff up your team, and then you got Venti for you got Venti for energy recharge and grouping up enemies, and Venti is just a broken character. But of course, we don't have Venti, and this exact team comp is a really good alternative for it. So instead of running Venti, you run a Sucrose, and what makes Sucrose good is because of her EM pass, and she's alongside Beidou, she's the only one who can pass off EM, and with Sucrose, the higher EM you stack, the higher EM she'll give out to her whole party, and having a high EM on the likes of Diluc and your Xingqiu would be very beneficial. This is another alternative for your national Diluc comp, wherein instead of running a Sucrose or a Venti, you run a Zhongli. Zhongli is there for the shield, plus he has the rest shred, and he has good amounts of CC. The only gripe I have about this team comp is that running Xingqiu and Bennett alongside your Diluc would make your Diluc really safe enough. You don't need the extra shielding or the extra CC from Zhongli. And of course, you're running 3 top tier supports with your Diluc, and I think that's a bit of a waste. So I I don't think this team comp is really that valuable. And Sucrose gives off higher DPS output because of her EM pass anyway, so I dislike this comp. And I think running Zhongli here is a waste, simply because with Xingqiu and Bennett, your Diluc is safe enough already. This is the team comp that I currently run on Spiral Abyss, wherein instead of I run a Bennett, I run a Xiangling. Xiangling is there to remove the electro debuffs or any debuffs in general, like not debuffs. The elemental monument buffs, yeah. Xiangling is there to remove the elemental monument buffs, plus she has really good constellations. Goba is really good for giving up attack. Xiangling vaporizing is really not that detrimental. Xiangling has really good multipliers on her burst, so Diluc and Xiangling can both vaporize with this team comp. So there's that. And with this team comp, you don't really run a healer. Zhongli alone is enough to keep this whole party alive. And this is the team comp where I would use my Lithic Blade. And I really enjoy this team comp. I think it's fun. So what's the alternative for this? You can go for the Kenroni special, wherein instead of running a Zhongli, you run a Barbara. So what's the benefit of Barbara over Zhongli is that number 1, you have a healer. Number 2, Barbara is a Thrilling Tales abuser. Number 3, extra Hydro application so that Diluc and Xiangling can vaporize. So there's that. There is also this team comp wherein you can do Shatter and Vaporize at the same time. Not at the same time. You can do both Shatter and Vaporize. So you run Rosaria and Diona this time. So you got Rosaria to apply cryo to freeze and then to give off crit rate to the entire party, which is really beneficial. You got Diona, which gives off shields and has really good amount of healing. And I think this is a really good all-around team comp since you can freeze, you can shatter, and then you can vaporize still. The only problem, there are two problems that I see with this team comp. Number one, it's a bit hard to consistently vaporize your elemental skill with this team comp. You need to do 2 or 3 normal attacks instead of doing just the normal attack E with Diluc, since you need to break off the freeze first with your normal attacks so that you won't shatter it with your elemental skill. And another thing is that you'll be losing on the double pyro resonance, which is really good. The extra 25% attack increase is really beneficial. And of course, you don't run double pyro here, so you lose out on that extra damage. But I think, despite that, it depends on the situation you're facing. I think this is still a really good team comp for Diluc. So, other than that, I really don't think there's any other alternatives for now. At least all the team comps I mentioned are the ones who I've tested and I think are really competitive. And as for alternatives for Xingqiu, I don't think there are any other alternatives that would be on the same level as him. But on the worst case scenario, if you don't have Xingqiu, you can run a Chongyun, since you can melt Diluc's elemental skill with Chongyun. It's just that it's just a bit difficult to pull off for me, since you need your Diluc to be not interrupted, and you need to do another extra normal attack to melt the Diluc. And another alternative would be Kaya, but it has the same issue with Chongyun but worse. You need Kaya's burst to be up to melt, and there's that. So yeah, that's it for the team comps. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. I hope this guide made you feel like you're Batman or something. And initially I was not gonna make a Diluc guide, but my boy Ronjan, he wanted me to make a Diluc combo guide, but I think it would be a bit too short if I made a guide about that, so I just decided to make a whole guide about Diluc instead. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.